So we are going to be looking at operators and collections. We have already looked at collections, lists. We have looked at list, map, and strings. All right, those are the collections in that. So we are going to just look at operators. Now we have operators. All right, different kinds of operators. The first is arithmetic operators. Okay, let's look at it from tutorial's point. So we have all these arithmetic operators, equality and relational operators, type test operators, bitwise operators, assignment operators, and logical operators. Well, our focus is going to be on about 4 of them: assignment operators, equality and relational operators, and then assignment and logical operators. Okay, so let's first look at arithmetic operators, which is something I'm sure we are all familiar with. All right, so the arithmetic operators consist of the following: addition, subtraction, division, and which one again? Multiplication. All right, so these are the 4 arithmetic operators we have, and we can easily perform operations using them. All right, so for example, if I have a number int sum, what is the sum of 2 numbers? 2 numbers added together, right? So let me first declare maybe 2 numbers or 3 numbers. So the first number is an int. Let me do this. Let me do this outside the main function. So the first number is an int. I'll call this num1. Alright, so I'll initialize it to 2. Int num2 is 7, and then double num3 is 3.5. Okay, so I've initialized 3 numbers. All right, and I want to use these numbers to perform arithmetic operations. So sum is going to be the sum of any 2 or 3 of the numbers. All right, so num1 plus num2. All right, so that's the sum of 2 numbers, the sum of 2 and 7. So I'm going to print it, and if I run it, you'll see I'm getting 9. I can even add the 3rd number if I want to. Alright, num 3. But I'm getting this error. Why am I getting this error? Because this 3rd number is a double. Alright, and if you add a double and 2 integers, your answer, your result should be a double. Right, but I'm attempting to store the value in an integer. So I'm getting this error that says a value of type double can't be assigned to a variable of type int. Try changing the type of the variable or casting the right hand type to int. Alright, so casting the right hand type to int is just simply telling me that I can actually do dots to int. But this will be wrong. Right, I'm going to have an exception, an error here, a runtime error. Right, so okay, to int, I casted num3 to int If I cast num3 to int, what did it give me? Gave me 3. Alright. But of course, the answer to this is not 12. Right? 2 plus 9. 2 plus 7 is 9. Add 3.5 to 9. It should give me 12.5, not 12. Alright. So what I just have to do is to change this int to double. Alright. And then I can get my correct answer. So that's it. So in the same way, I can perform multiplication, double, multiple. No, it should be product, right? Yeah. Let me just change this to multiplied. So num2 times num1. Alright. Num2 times num1. Value of type. Okay. 7 times 2 is 14. Alright. So it says a value of type int can be assigned to a variable of type double. Now another way of casting is like this. Okay, so I just added this. Now I did this because of what it said. It says try changing the type of the variable, which is suggesting that I do this. I change the type of the variable, right? Or casting the right hand type to double. Alright, so there's something called type casting. Okay, it says casting the right hand type to double. Now this is the left hand type, of course, our variable. Alright, and then this is the right hand type, our value. Okay, so it says or casting the right hand type to double. Now the simple way of doing that is by using this as, and then we cast it to this double. Now you're saying that even though this may be an integer, alright, see it as a double. Alright, so I'm going to try and print multiplied, and okay, this is what it gets me. It says type int is not a subtype of double in typecast. So it's still insisting that this is still not a double. 14 is not a double. Alright, so I have no choice than to change the value of the left hand type. So 2 times 4 is 14. Alright, and I have that. So I'm going to perform a division operation, and I'm going to use double. Alright, double divide. What am I going to divide? Num3 by num2. Alright, so if I print, I will have 0.5. Okay, and then what have I now done? Subtraction. Alright, so I'm just going to use int subtract num1 minus num2. Okay, sorry. Subtract. Alright, so I have that. Okay, so we have looked at the arithmetic operators. I believe that is actually self-explanatory. Alright, it's self-explanatory. So you can go through this. Okay, you can go through this. We still have more, actually. Alright, and the important ones I want you to take note of this truncating division. You can read it up. This is called the modulo. What it does is it gets the remainder of an integer division. All right. So for example, let me just explain this. For example, if let me create a variable. Now, if I do something like num1 mod num7, sorry, num2, okay, it's actually supposed to be an int. I think it should be num2 and num1. Let me do num2 and num1. Now, if we divide 7 by 2, 7 divided by 2, what's it going to give us? It's going to give us 3 remainder 1. All right. So that remainder is what is going to be returned here. That is why it is an integer. All right. It's always going to be an int. Whenever you perform this operation, this mod operation, all right, you're going to have an int. So because 7 divided by 2 is 3 remainder 1, the remainder is 1. All right, I'm going to have 1. Okay, I hope it's clear enough. All right. And of course we have increment and decrement. All right, so what increment does is that it simply increases a number. Okay, so I have num3. If I do num3 plus plus, it's going to increase this number by 1, num3. All right, so let me use an integer and see what the problem is. Okay, this operator is meant to be before the variable. Right, so plus plus num3 is going to give us 4.5. all right, so the reason is like this is because when this operator is in front, all right, it performs the operation before this is printed. Right, this operation is performed before this value is printed, the increment operator. All right, so let's say I start in a variable int num3 equal to num3 plus plus. Sorry, increment equal to num3 plus plus. Okay, double. I'm getting 3.5. all right, because the way the compiler sees this, it sees this value before it now sees this increment. Sorry, it sees this value before it now increments. All right, so this value is already stored here in this variable. The original value of num3, all right, is already stored in this variable before I printed it. Okay, so we need to find a way to make the compiler see this increment operation before this num3, so that when it finally sees this num3, it just carries out the operation on it. All right, so that is why I brought it to the front. Okay, so it increases by 1. all right, Now another way of doing this is by just saying num3 plus equals to 1. Alright, we are going to look at this particular operator soon. Alright, so this is the same thing. This right now, this right here, it's the same thing as this. Alright, and in the same way we can also decrement. Alright, we can also decrement. So we have this. Okay, so from 3.5 to 2.5. So that's that. Alright, so you can go and read up and practice on your own. Of course, I will encourage you to do that. Okay, so we have equality and relational operators. Alright, I think this one is quite self-explanatory. In fact, we saw some of these in conditional statements. Alright, when we were checking our conditions for if statements, if else, if, and switch case. Alright, so this simply means greater than. Alright, so it means that if A is 10 and B is 20, right? If we check this, if we check A greater than B, it is going to be false. It is going to default to false. Alright, and this is lesser than. It's just the opposite of greater than. Alright, A less than B is true because of course 10 is less than 20. Alright, and then we have greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. So what this simply means is that, let me demonstrate using 2 and 7. So I'll just write a print statement. Num1 is 2. And num2 is 7. Alright, so it is false because this is greater than, alright, and 2 is not greater than 7, so we have false. But if I had another number, int, in fact let it be double, num4, and I initialize it to 2.0, if I do this, what do you think I will get? I'll still get 4 because 2 is not greater than 2.0. Neither is 2.0 greater than 2. They are equal. Alright, so what I can actually also do here is I can do greater than or equal to. So what this operator does is if it checks whether this number on the left hand side is greater than or equal to the number on the right hand side. Alright, so there we go, true. Alright, so less than or equal to does the same. Okay, and then we also have this equality. What this equality does is it just checks if two numbers are equal. Alright, so I'm checking if num1 is equal to num2. Alright, now this is equality operator. Alright, this is what we call equal to in programming. In that programming, it is not this is assignment. Alright, I'm going to look at the assignment operator later. So this is the equality operator. Alright, so it just checks if two values are equal. And then we also have this one, which is not equal to. Alright, so it checks if two values are not equal to each other. Alright, so false, and it's false because they're actually equal. 2 and 2.0 are equal. Alright, if I happen to change this to 2.1, you see I'll have true. Okay, So that's what it is. And then we also have type test operator. This just tests for types, all right? And there are just two of them, is and is not. So if I say this, what I have here now, all right, is a boolean. Now this defaults to bool, of course. Necessary type check. Okay, let's just proceed. This defaults to bool. Okay, you can see I got a boolean when I printed this operation, this entire operation. All right, so now I'm checking if it's true. Checking if it's true is what I'm going to get true. All right, but I can also check if it is not true. Is that it? Yeah. So if it is not true, I'll get false. Okay, so that's that. And then we have assignment operators. Okay, we have looked at this. First off, we have this. All these are assignment operators. What it does is we simply assign values to variables using it. All right, so with this equal sign, we assign values to variables. Okay, and of course we have different types of assignment operators, right? For instance, if I print num1 plus equal to 1, now we have seen this before, right, in incrementing, right? But this operator is actually an assignment, operator, because it just adds 1 to this variable num1, right? So it will add 1 to it and print the value and give us the value. Okay, so if we hit run, num1 has increased from 2 to 3. Okay, now I can actually also do this, minus equals to 1, and it has moved from 2 to 1. I can perform a division operation, but I'll have to change this to double. Yeah, okay, 2.0. Let me divide it by something else. All right, so it just divides this number, the variable, by 3, all right, and assigns the value back to it. Okay, it also happens with multiplication. 6.0. Okay, so that's it for our assignment operators. That's at least all you need to know. And then we have logical operators. Okay, this means and, this means or, and then this means not. Let's look at examples. All right, so we have some numbers. Some variables a and b, right? And the value of a is 10, the value of b is 12, right? So we okay, let me just copy this. So we all know that a is greater than b. Sorry, a is less than b, right? A is less than B, so it is true. Okay, so but is A greater than B? No, it is not. Alright, so we can actually combine different conditions by saying A is greater than B, and I'm going to wrap this in parentheses so that my compiler will see it as 1. Alright, and A is equal to B. Now what do you think this will give us? It's going to give us false, because this AND operator, it checks for these two things, these two values, whether they are true. Alright, whether the value of these two operations are true. If both of them are true, it's going to return, like this whole thing is going to return true. Right, so res will be true. This res actually means result. So result will be true. But if they are not equal, like if maybe this first operand is true, but the second one is false, okay, this is the value of result is going to be false. This whole thing is going to default to false. So for AND operations, both sides must be true. That is the rule, right? So that's it for AND. But for OR, for logical OR, for this OR, it says the operator returns true if at least one of the expressions specified return true. Okay, so it looks like this. So this is OR. Alright, so basically this or this. Okay, if this is true but this is false, this whole thing is going to default to true. So what this OR operator does is it checks if at least one of the conditions is true. Right, and because this one is true, at least one of the conditions is true, it's going to default to true. Okay, so that's it. But this one, this is not. Alright, it says the operator returns the inverse of the operation of the expression's result. Alright, so for instance, now remember that this is actually not. Okay, not in programming. Okay, so if I say, now we know that this is true, this particular operation is true. If I were to print it, I'm going to have true. But if I now attach this operator not, right, it's going to be false. So what this is it is actually a negation operator, right? Negation as in negation. All right, so that is what this operator is. So I believe we have looked at operators. Okay, and I will advise you to go through this page on tutorialspoints.com/that programming. All right, and under here we have operators. You can go through it yourself and just refresh your memory on all that we have done. Okay, so in the next class we are going to be talking about control flow. All right, control flow. So we are going to be looking at this. loop structures, conditional statements, and then break and continue. All right, and that will be just before we go into module 2 of our Dart course. So thank you very much for listening. I'll see you next time.